Welcome back. In the previous task, you learned how to use the sorting and filtering tools to rearrange your data and quickly obtain specific information about the data. In this task, you will learn how to do some data mining using the if function. The idea behind data mining is that you take the data you already have and you create new or additional data from it. There are different functions and analysis that you can perform as data mining, but one common function that is used is the if function. When using the if function, what we're doing is asking a question about the data, and then we get two responses, depending on whether the answer would be true or false for the question. Before we get into an example, let's remove first the filter we had applied from the previous task so that we show all the sales. So we'll go to the sales representative column and then click on filter and select all to show all the sales again. So let's see how we would use the if function with an example, which will be easier to understand. Let's say that when an order has 20 chairs or more, the client receives a 5% wholesale discount. So we first want to figure out which sales had 20 chairs or more to see if we need to apply the discount to the sale or not. So in our table, we're going to add a new column, which we will call it discount. And we could do this to the right of the total column. So in column M, we will write as a header discount. And after pressing enter, Excel automatically recognizes that we're adding an additional column to our table. We can make this column a little wider. And so in this column, we're going to have an N for no if the sale doesn't have the wholesale discount because there were fewer than 20 chairs, or a Y for yes for sales that had more than 20 chairs and will have the wholesale discount. And we're going to do this with the if function. So in cell M5, we're going to start with our if function. As with every function, we start with an equal sign, and then we'll type if. And here you'll see the list of different if functions that Excel has. We're just going to use the regular if function. And here a little trick is that we could click on or type tab, and Excel will open up the parentheses for our function and will list what we need to include inside the parentheses. So we have the logical test, which is the question that we're answering, which is if the sale had more than 20 chairs or 20 chairs or more. Then what value we want to have as a response if this was true, which in our case is a Y for yes, and the value if the condition is false, which in this case is an N for no. So let's write our function. So we have that what we're testing is if cell J5 is more than or equal to 20. So we'll click on cell J5, then we're asking if it's greater than or equal to 20. Then we want a Y as a response for the true condition. And since we're asking for a text response, we need to use quotation. So Y within quotations, and then comma, N if this is false. And then we would close the parentheses and we'll press enter. And we'll see what we get. So you could see that after writing the equation, it's auto-filled the remaining cells of the table. And let's check if the equation worked. In the first case, we have an N because the number of chairs sold in that first sale was 15, which is less than 20. But then in the second one, we have a Y because there were 22 chairs sold, which is greater than or equal to 20. So it did work. Great. Well, to make it easier to see, we could maybe align the text in the middle of the cell. So let's highlight the whole M column, and then we can align our text in the center so that we could see the N and the Y. And now with this, we know which sales would have the wholesale discount and which sales don't. And we could even filter the data to show only the sales with the discount if we wanted to. Now let's continue with this example to practice this a little more. Instead of listing the sales that have the discount and which ones don't, let's say that we actually want to calculate the final price for the sale, applying the discount only to the sales that had 20 or more chairs. We could also do this with the if function. We're going to create a new column on column N, so I'm going to drag this a little to the right, and we're going to name this new column final price, for example. We'll click enter, and it'll again recognize that it's a new column of our table. And to use the if function, we're going to start like we did last time. So equals if, press tab to open the parentheses. And in our case, the logical function is the same as we previously had, where we're asking if J5 is greater than or equal to 20. But now the response is a little more complex, because if this is true, we want to apply the discount to the total price that we calculated. And for sales with 20 or more chairs, the final price is going to be 95% of this initial total that we calculated, which would be applying that 5% discount. So 100 minus 5 gives us 95. So to do that, 95% as a decimal is 0.95. And we're going to multiply that. So we'll use an asterisk and then multiply it by that total that we had previously calculated. So our response, if true, it would be 0.95 times L5. But if it's false, we don't want to apply the discount. So we'll write comma. And then for false, we would just have cell L5 because we don't want to have a discount applied to it. And then we'll close the parentheses and press enter. And it should auto-populate the remaining cells of the column. And we could now check this. So for all of the sales that didn't have a discount, the final price should be the same as the total. So we could see that for our first sale. But for the second sale, which did have the discount, the final price, you could see that it's a little lower than our initial total, meaning that that 5% discount has been applied. Now we could format this column by highlighting the total column and stating that we have currency in this one. And now we could see that it's changed to US dollars. And since they're pretty big numbers, we can remove the zeros after the decimal by clicking on the decrease decimal icon 2 times. And now we have the correct format for our new column with the final price. Great job. Well, now we're going to move on to the next task, where we're going to continue with the data analysis, learning how to relate tables in different tabs and learning how to look up information with the VLOOKUP function.